Hey there, I'm Julie. Let me lay this out straight, running a business ain't no cakewalk, but it's all I've known since Pop's passed. Dad was a self-made man, built a sports nutrition empire from the ground up. When he was gone, it fell to me and my big bro, Max, to keep the ship steady. He took the helm as CEO, and I jumped into the HR director's chair. It was early October, crisp leaves, you know the drill. Max and I were holed up in his office, one of those typical mornings, jam-packed with meetings and decisions. Julie, we need to double-check these hiring protocols. We can't afford slip-ups, Max said, shuffling papers like they were hot potatoes. Got it, Max. I'll tighten up the interviews. No more duds, promise. I shot back, scribbling notes. Our chatter was cut short by Linda, Max's assistant, poking her head in. Max, your 10 o'clock is here. Max nodded. Thanks, Linda. Let's wrap this up, Julie. Remember, quality over quantity. That evening, unwinding was on the agenda, so I hit up a local bar with some pals. Little did I know, life had a curveball lined up. That's where I bumped into Jake. Sports journalist, flashy blogger type, always with a camera in hand. He had that cheeky grin, said he recognized me from some industry bash. You're Julie, right? The nutrition guru, he said, sidling up to the bar where I was perched. Guilty as charged. And you're Jake, the sports pundit who can't hold his liquor. I quipped, recalling his less than stellar performance at a recent event. Jake laughed, his ego intact. Fair shot. But let me make it up to you. Can I buy you a drink? I was about to brush him off, but curiosity got the better of me. Sure, why not? But keep it classy, no beer goggle specials. As the night wore on, Jake's charm wasn't just the booze talking. He was smart, knew his stuff. But I wasn't one to dive headfirst without checking the water. A few months later, things got serious, and Max, always the protective type, called me for a chat in his office, which looked more like a fortress with all its plush trappings. Julie, about Jake, Max started, no hellos, no how are yas. You sure about this guy? He's slicker than a wet driveway. I know, Max. But he's different. At least, he seems like it. I defended, knowing full well Max's meter for BS was off the charts. Max leaned in, his voice low. Just watch yourself. And for heaven's sake, get a prenup. Don't let him near the finances. Relax, big bro. It's under control. We'll sort the prenup. Jake wasn't thrilled about the prenup talk, thought it was a trust breaker. But too bad, it was non-negotiable. So, he signed. Grumbling, but signed all the same. Settling into married life with Jake felt like stepping onto a roller coaster that only went up, at first. Jake moved into my place, a sprawling house that Dad left me. It was more space than I ever needed, but soon enough, Jake made sure it felt like a celebrity hotspot. One lazy Saturday morning, I found Jake in the garden, setting up a tripod with his camera pointed at the house. He was framing the shot like he was directing a blockbuster. What's the big setup for, Jake? I asked, coffee in hand. Content day, babe. Gotta keep the feed fresh, he said without looking up. This backdrop is gold, makes for killer views. You mean my house? I frowned. Just make sure you don't tell everyone it's yours. Jake chuckled, patting me on the shoulder as if I'd told a good joke. Relax, Julie. It's all showbiz. You get it, right? Gotta sell the dream. As weeks rolled on, these content days became more elaborate. Rented luxury cars appeared in our driveway, and designer clothes draped over our furniture like we were running a boutique. One evening, I caught Jake sorting through a pile of flashy watches and gadgets. The living room was a mess, like a scene from one of those reality shows where people spend like there's no tomorrow. Planning to open a pawn shop with all this, or what? I teased, trying to keep the mood light. All props, Julie. It's for the gram. You know, gotta keep up with the Joneses, Jake replied, his eyes glued to his phone screen as he scrolled through comments and likes. It wasn't just the props. Bills started piling up, too. Jake made sure we were seen at every hotspot in town, all while the credit card bills stacked like a house of cards. One night, I came home to find Jake in the midst of what looked like a mini film crew in our living room. He was all dressed up, giving a tour of our house as if it were a grand estate on some luxury real estate show. "Jake, can I talk to you for a second?" I pulled him aside, my patience wearing thin. "Sure, babe, what's up?" He flashed his camera-ready smile, not missing a beat. All this, I waved around at the lights, the people. "It's too much. You're turning our home into a circus." Jake's face hardened for a moment, then softened as he took my hands in his. "Julie, babe, trust me, this is good for us. These videos? They're blowing up. It's all about branding, babe. We're getting tons of traction here. Just enjoy the ride." One evening over a casual dinner at home, which had become a rarity given our hectic schedules, Jake brought up an idea that initially sounded promising. "Hey, Julie, I've been thinking," Jake started, his tone casual as he passed me the salad bowl. "Why not use my blog to give the family business a little boost? I could do a feature on the sports nutrition products. It'd be a fun project." I was intrigued, if a bit cautious. Mixing personal and professional wasn't always a recipe for success. "Really? That sounds great, but how much is this going to cost us?" I asked, trying to tread lightly. Jake smiled, waving his hand dismissively as he took another bite. "Oh, come on, it's family. I wouldn't charge you guys. We'll do it for free. Just think of the exposure it could bring." The next day, full of optimism, I brought Jake to Max's office to discuss the proposal. I figured it would be a straightforward meeting. After all, Jake was offering to do the promo for free. Walking into Max's office, I felt a buoyant sense of pride in Jake's generous offer. "Max, Jake has a great idea to boost our product line through his blog," I began, smiling at Jake. Jake nodded and took over with confidence. "Thanks, Julie. So, Max, I've got a decent follower base, and I was thinking of shooting some high-quality videos about your products. Put them up on my blog, maybe even do a series. It could really drive some traffic and increase sales. Best part? I'm happy to do it as a family favor." Max seemed pleasantly surprised, leaning back in his chair with a cautious smile. "Really? That's a generous offer, Jake. It sounds like a good opportunity for some extra visibility. What's the catch?" Jake hesitated just a moment too long before delivering the bombshell. "Well, when I said free, I meant no out-of-pocket costs up front. But to cover production quality, editing, marketing, I'd need about 25 grand. The room's temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Max's face hardened, and I felt my own smile falter into confusion. $25,000? Jake, last night you said this would be free, I interjected, my voice a mix of surprise and disappointment. Jake's confident demeanor didn't waver. "Yeah, free as in I'm not making a profit off this. That's just to cover the expenses. It's standard for this kind of work." Max's expression was unreadable for a moment before he spoke. "Jake, we're talking about promoting my sister's, your wife's, company. This isn't just any client. Charging us 25 grand doesn't sound like a family favor." Jake stood a bit straighter, his response defensive. "It's business, Max. That's how things work in media. You want professional quality, you have to pay for it." The meeting ended abruptly, with Max politely but firmly declining Jake's proposal. As we left his office, the air between Jake and me was thick with unsaid things. I felt a chasm opening up, one that was filled with doubts about Jake's intentions and his understanding of what family meant to me. Life at home was growing colder by the day, and work was my only refuge. To keep the company on track and take some of the load off my shoulders, I decided it was time to bring on a new finance director. That's when Lauren entered the picture, bright, driven, and sharp as a tack. She was just the kind of talent our company needed. Lauren quickly became more than just an employee, she was a trusted advisor. She often joined my brother Max and me for our brainstorming sessions at my house. These meetings were crucial for the future of our business, filled with lively discussions and bold ideas. Lauren's insights were invaluable, bringing fresh perspectives that even Max, with all his experience, appreciated. Jake, however, didn't share our enthusiasm. Whenever he was around, he seemed disinterested, lounging with a glass of wine, more spectator than participant. His boredom was palpable, his contributions minimal. As the months rolled by, Jake's absences became more frequent. His business trips seemed to take him away for days, sometimes weeks at a time. I tried to keep up with his blog, watching his posts for any sign of what was really going on. But everything there was just as polished and perfect as ever, smiling faces, exotic locations, and no hint of anything amiss. Part of me was relieved, thinking maybe this was just the life of a sports journalist. Then, one Sunday afternoon, Max dropped by for coffee. We sat in the kitchen, a rare moment of calm between us. That's when he brought it up, casually stirring his coffee. "Julie, I've noticed you and Jake haven't been around much together. Everything okay?" I bristled at his words, the spoon in my hand clinking louder against the mug than I intended. "What's that supposed to mean, Max? Just because we don't have dinners together every night?" "Jake's busy, I'm busy. We're both just doing our thing." Max studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, Julie. Just remember, I'm here if you need to talk. About anything, okay?" His words, meant to comfort, only made the pit in my stomach grow. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Thanks, Max. I know. I'm fine, really." But as the days turned into weeks, and Jake's brief appearances at home became even rarer, I couldn't shake the unease that had settled over me. Was I just being paranoid? Or was there more to Jake's trips than meets the eye? One night, lying in bed alone, I couldn't sleep. My phone was in my hand before I knew it, scrolling through old messages and pictures of Jake and me. We looked happy, carefree. I missed that. I missed him. The night was supposed to be a celebration of our company's success. We had just hit a major profit milestone, and Max had gone all out for the party. The venue was decked with elegant decor, the buffet was lavish, and the air buzzed with the chatter of our proud team. As the evening wore on, the weight of my earlier decision to confront Jake loomed over me. He had been mingling, camera in hand, seemingly more interested in capturing the perfect shot than celebrating our achievement. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, I stepped out into the quieter foyer to catch my breath. That's when I saw him. Jake, not alone, tucked away behind a half-drawn curtain. My heart skipped as I thought to steal a moment with him, to maybe smooth over the growing rift between us. I moved closer, my steps silent on the plush carpet. But the closer I got, the clearer the conversation became. It wasn't just innocent laughter, it was intimate, secretive. My pace slowed, and I stopped just short of revealing myself, hidden by the shadow of the partition. Jake was there with Lauren, our finance director. His hands were on her, pulling her close in a way that made my stomach churn. Her laughter tinkled through the air, a sound I had come to appreciate for entirely different reasons. "And once Julie's money hits our account, we're set," Jake whispered, his words like daggers. "We can finally get out of here, buy that house in Mexico, just like we wanted." Lauren giggled, her voice dripping with contempt. "Can you believe how easy it was? She's such a stupid chicken, clueless and loaded." Their laughter cut through me, sharp and mocking. My breath caught in my throat, heart pounding with a cocktail of hurt and fury. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? I backed away quietly, ensuring they didn't notice me. My mind raced as I returned to the party, finding Max in the crowd. His face was lit up with pride and joy, sharing a joke with some of our top managers. I pulled him aside, my voice a hushed urgent whisper. "Max, I need to talk to you. It's urgent. Let's find somewhere private." Once secluded, I spilled everything. Every word, every laugh I had overheard. Max's face hardened with each detail, his initial shock turning to icy fury. "We'll handle this, Julie," he said, his voice low and steady. We'll get auditors to go through the accounts first thing tomorrow. I'll also find a detective. We need solid evidence." His decisiveness was a bomb, and his next words were a vow. "They won't get away with this. Not against my sister, not against our company." We returned to the party, our faces masks of composure. Inside, I was reeling, but outwardly, I was calm, even as Jake and Lauren rejoined the group, laughing, oblivious to the storm coming their way. The morning after the party, I was up early, driven by a mix of adrenaline and resolve. I met Max at the office, before anyone else had arrived. He had already lined up meetings with some of the best auditors in the city and was on the phone trying to secure a reputable private detective. "Julie, I've got someone coming in at 9. He's supposed to be one of the best," Max said as soon as I walked into his office. His face was stern, the lines around his eyes deeper than usual. The auditors arrived, a team of 3, each with a laptop and a briefcase full of what I assumed were tools of their trade. They set up in one of our conference rooms, and Max and I briefed them on the situation without going into too many personal details. "We've noticed some discrepancies in our accounts, small transactions that don't add up," Max explained, his voice firm. "We need a thorough check of all transactions for the past 6 months. The lead auditor, a sharp-eyed woman named Janet, nodded. "We'll start with the bank statements, cross-reference them with your ledgers, and track every transaction. It might take a few days, but we'll find out where your money's been going." Later that afternoon, the private detective Max had hired came in. He was a middle-aged man named Carl, with a demeanor that was all business. "Mr. Marshall told me you're dealing with potential internal fraud," Carl said, settling into the chair in Max's office. "Yes, and possibly more than that," I said, meeting his gaze. "We think it's linked to a personal matter as well." Carl nodded, jotting down notes. "I'll need access to certain information, bank records, employee details, communications if possible. Anything that can help paint a clearer picture of what's been going on." As the days passed, the atmosphere in the office was tense. I continued to work, interact with staff, and even speak with Jake and Lauren, though every conversation felt like walking on glass shards. Finally, the auditors called us into the conference room to present their findings. The news was as bad as we feared. Janet laid it out for us. We found numerous irregular transactions, totaling just over $2 million. All directed to an account that, after some digging, appears to be in Mr. Jake Thompson's name. I sat there, numb, the finality of it all settling in my stomach like lead. But there was more. Carl had his report ready too. "I've been following Mr. Thompson and Ms. Lauren Aronson. They've been careful, but not careful enough. I've got photos of them together, receipts for a car he bought her, and jewelry. Lots of it." He laid the photos on the table, each one a knife in my heart. "They've also bought tickets to Mexico. Looks like they plan to leave in 4 months. And there's this," Carl continued, handing over a document. "Mr. Thompson has secured a job with a media company in Mexico, under a work visa processed 2 months ago." I listened, each word Carl said fueling the cold fire inside me. "Anything else?" I asked, my voice steady. "They're waiting on a final transfer of funds into their account. Looks like they're planning one big score before they leave," Carl concluded. As we wrapped up, I knew what had to be done. The pain of betrayal was deep, but it sharpened my resolve. Jake and Lauren would pay for their treachery, and I would make sure of it. As the end of the year neared, I planned a pre-Christmas celebration like no other. The famous restaurant, decked in holiday style, filled quickly with the buzz of excited employees. I knew Jake would see this as another opportunity to showcase his glamorous life, oblivious to the storm brewing. Jake entered the venue in a sharp suit, his smile wide as he narrated into his camera. "Here we are at one of the city's most exclusive spots, celebrating a fantastic year," he broadcasted live to his followers. Cameras I had installed earlier rolled quietly, capturing every moment for the climax I had meticulously planned. Midway through the evening, with applause still echoing for the employee awards, I took the stage. "Now, for a very special recognition, I announced, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I called Lauren up. For outstanding performance and dedication, this year's top honor goes to our finance director, Lauren Aronson. The applause was warm as she joined me on stage, a puzzled smile on her face as I handed her a beautifully wrapped box. "Open this later," I whispered, and she nodded, stepping down with her prize. Finally, it was time for the grand finale. I called Jake up to the stage, my heart pounding against my ribs. "And now, a special thanks to someone who has shared much of my life's journey," I began, my voice echoing across the room. The room quieted, all eyes on us. Jake beamed, soaking in the adoration, completely unaware. I handed him a similar box. "Please, open this now." Confusion flickered across his face as he lifted the lid, his hands trembling slightly. The color drained from his face as he stared down at the divorce papers and the stack of photographs, images of him with Lauren, unmistakable in their intimacy. The silence was deafening. Jake's eyes met mine, and I could see the realization crashing down on him. His live feed was still running, broadcasting his disgrace for all to see. "Now," I continued, turning to Lauren, who stood frozen near her seat, "would you please open your gift?" With shaking hands, Lauren unwrapped her box to reveal receipts for the luxury car Jake had bought her, and the damning account statements of the stolen money. Murmurs filled the room as the evidence displayed on a large screen behind me. "I loved a man I thought I knew," I addressed the crowd, my voice breaking the stunned silence. "But he, along with our finance director, plotted to steal not just money from our company, but also our trust and future." Jake's voice cracked as he grabbed the microphone. "It was all her idea. She seduced me into this mess," he blurted, pointing a trembling finger at Lauren. Lauren's face contorted with rage as she stormed the stage. "You liar! You promised me a life together." She slapped him, the sound echoing, as the crowd gasped. Max stepped forward, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. "The police are on their way. Both of you will answer for what you've done," he declared, his voice booming over the mic. The room erupted into chaos as the police arrived, handcuffing Jake and Lauren amidst their protests. I watched, a complex knot of relief and sorrow in my chest, as they were led away. Jake's live feed of the pre-Christmas event had gone viral, catapulting the whole sordid affair into the public eye. My phone was buzzing nonstop, notifications piling up from viewers who had watched everything unfold. "Start your own blog" became a recurring suggestion. I chuckled at that. Me, a blogger? As the dust settled, the legal ramifications kicked in full force. I filed for divorce immediately, and with the evidence stacked high against Jake, it was a straightforward process. The court granted me a significant financial settlement due to his fraud and betrayal. Lauren, caught in her own web of lies, faced the courts too. She pleaded guilty to embezzlement, returned every stolen dollar, and watched her professional credentials dissolve before her eyes. Banned from holding any significant corporate position, her career was effectively over. Jake's life unraveled spectacularly. The Mexican media company, having caught wind of his misdeeds, terminated his contract, citing moral clause violations. Other agencies and networks shied away, not wanting to associate with someone so publicly disgraced. His subscriber count plummeted as fans abandoned ship, and eventually, he shut down his blog, his primary source of income gone. One evening, several weeks after the trial, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Jake, a shadow of his former self. He looked worn, his eyes pleading. "Julie, I'm so sorry. I was wrong, so terribly wrong. Can we talk?" His voice was hoarse, desperate. I stood there, the cool evening breeze brushing against my face, considering the man I had once loved. "Talk? After everything you've done? There's nothing left to say, Jake." My voice was calm but firm. "But I've lost everything. I need help. Please, Julie," he implored, taking a step forward. I shook my head, my resolve steel. "You made your choices, Jake. Now you live with them. Goodbye." I closed the door softly but firmly, cutting off any further pleas. Turning away from the door, I felt a surge of strength. It was over. I was free from his deceit. With renewed vigor and trust, Max and I steered our company into new ventures and expansions. The support from the community was overwhelming, and in time, I did start that blog. As for Jake, I heard he moved away, a ghost of his former self, searching for a fresh start. I didn't wish him ill, but he was part of a chapter that was firmly closed, locked away in the archives of lessons learned.